All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today you'll get to hear from both me and from Rima Basa, who's here to speak on behalf of the President of the General Assembly. This morning in Paris, the Secretary General addressed UNESCO's General Conference and reiterated the organization's central role to bring the worlds together. He highlighted, among others, UNESCO's work to address ethical issues in science and technology, as well as its fundamental role to coordinate and monitor global efforts to promote education. The Secretary General also met some of UNESCO's young staffers and representatives and reminded them that they are agents of change in international organizations. And last night, immediately after his intervention at the Paris Peace Forum, the Secretary General had a bilateral meeting with President Emmanuel Macron. Their conversation focused on the need to redouble global efforts to fight climate change. He then attended a dinner hosted by the French President for heads of state and heads of international organizations participating in the Paris Peace Forum. The Secretary General is now on his way back to the United States. Speaking earlier today at the opening of the Nairobi Summit, the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, called on participants to reignite, accelerate, and keep the promise made 25 years ago at the landmark International Conference on Population and Development, also known as the ICPD. Amina Mohammed presented the United Nations commitments to fully implement the ICPD program of action, adding that its goals have never been more relevant for people, especially women and girls. The Deputy Secretary General said that the Nairobi Summit is an opportunity to mobilize the needed political and financial momentum to succeed. With the full commitment of each of us, she said, we can ensure that women and girls are truly at the heart of sustainable development. The Nairobi Summit continues until November 14th. The remarks of the Deputy Secretary General have been shared with you. The UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon, Jan Kubish, met today with President Michel Aoun, along with ambassadors representing the members of the International Support Group for Lebanon. Special Coordinator Kubish calls upon the leadership of Lebanon to urgently nominate the Prime Minister-designate, start the mandatory process of parliamentary consultations, and maximally accelerate the process of the formation of the new government of personalities known for their competence and integrity, trusted by the people. He said that such a cabinet, formed in line with the aspirations of the people and supported by the broadest range of political forces through the parliamentary vote of confidence, will also be in a better position to appeal for support from Lebanon's international partners. Mr. Kubish underscored that the national interest and unity of Lebanon must be put above any other considerations. Continuous protection of peaceful protesting civilians by the security forces, maintenance of law and order, and the functioning of the state and its economy without using force or violence is the paramount responsibility of the leadership of Lebanon and its security forces. The UN remains committed to supporting Lebanon, its political independence, non-interference into internal matters, unity, stability, security, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. The Secretary General's Special Representative for Iraq, Janine Hennis-Plasschaert, met today with the heads of Iraqi unions and syndicates. They discussed the current political situation in the country, including the ongoing demonstrations and possible solutions. Yesterday, Special Representative Hennis-Plasschaert was received by Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani in Najaf. Ms. Hennis-Plasschaert thanked His Eminence for the warm, welcome, and frank discussion. His Eminence issued a statement afterwards stressing his position on the demonstrations and reforms and welcoming the UN Next Step plan for the way forward. UN humanitarian workers remain gravely concerned over the safety and protection of some 4 million people in northwest Syria, including some 2 million internally displaced people, following a recent intensification of airstrikes and shelling in the area. 13 communities have been impacted by shelling and 5 by airstrikes. Since the end of April, over 400,000 women, children, and men have been displaced by the violence in northwest Syria, many of them multiple times, and over 1,000 have lost their lives, many of them children. Of the 2.7 million Syrians in need of humanitarian assistance in the area, 76% are women and children. The UN continues to respond to needs throughout the northwest. Some 1.1 million people were reached with food aid last month, as deliveries have been scaled up to meet the high levels of need. At the same time, efforts to deliver critical winter items are ongoing, particularly for those in displacement camps and informal settlements. The UN reminds all parties of their obligation to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure, including facilitating access to those in need in a regular, sustained, and impartial manner, in line with international humanitarian and human rights law. In a new report, the UN today warned that the prevalence of adult obesity in Latin America and the Caribbean has tripled since 1975, affecting 1 in 4 adults in a region where hunger has grown once again, reaching 42.5 million people. The report, jointly released by the World Food Programme, UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and the Food and Agricultural Organization, calls on countries to develop urgent actions to address both obesity and malnutrition in the region. According to the report, the most significant increase in adult obesity in the region was observed in the Caribbean, where the percentage quadrupled, rising from 6% in 1975 to 25%. In other words, from 760,000 people to 6.6 million people. At the same time, every year, 600,000 people die in Latin America and the Caribbean due to diseases related to poor diets, such as diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular diseases. You can find the food report online. Today is World Pneumonia Day, and UNICEF reported that this disease claimed the lives of more than 800,000 children under the age of 5 last year, or one child every 39 seconds. According to the agency's new analysis, most deaths occurred among children under the age of 2, and almost 153,000 within the first month of life. Sounding the alarm about this forgotten epidemic, 6 leading health and children's organizations are today launching an appeal for global action. In January, the group will host world leaders at the Global Forum on Childhood Pneumonia in Spain. More children under the age of 5 died from the disease in 2018 than from any other. You have more information online. The Universal Postal Union announced today the launch of a new digital financial services project with postal operators in 8 countries through its Financial Inclusion Technical Assistance Facility. According to the organization, the Post's vast physical network has already made it an engine for financial inclusion, but there's potential to reach many more people digitally who currently have no access to financial networks. You can find more information online. And like I said, immediately following my briefing, Rima Baza, the spokesperson for the President of the General Assembly, will brief you. And before we get to Reem, are there any questions for me? Yes, Nabil.
Thank you, Farhan. We've seen that the UN's proposals maybe or position on the situation in Iraq was very detailed. The UN mission in Iraq proposed like a roadmap maybe for the government, but we did not see the same approach in Lebanon. Why we see this big gap between the UN's approach in Iraq and what's been said by the Secretary General's representative in Lebanon?
First of all, the two situations are different, and they have different issues that need to be addressed. But beyond that, I don't really agree with the fundamental premise that we're doing very different things. There has been an extensive comments. I just mentioned some of what Mr. Cooper said today. But if you look at the full press release from the Office of the UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon, you'll see that there's quite a lot of detail in terms of what he's saying following his meeting today with President Daoun. Yes, Edie.
Thank you, Farhan. 2 questions. First, does the Secretary General have any reaction to Israel's killing of an Islamic Jihad leader and the subsequent rocketing of southern and central Israel?
Just on that, I can say that we're concerned about reports of casualties on either side, and beyond that, we are monitoring the situation very closely.
And does the Secretary General have any comment on Turkey's decision to send its foreign fighters for the Islamic State and other extremist groups back to their home countries or countries of origin?
Well, as you're aware, regarding the situation of foreign terrorist fighters in Syria, the Security Council itself has pronounced itself on how the issue of the foreign terrorist fighters needs to be addressed, and we believe that all countries should implement the relevant Security Council resolution. Yes, please.
Yeah. Do you have updates on the Rohingya refugees of Myanmar who are living in Bangladesh and India, please? Thank you.
Well, we've made clear our concerns about there being the right conducive conditions for their return to Myanmar. Those do not currently exist, and what we've been doing is trying to provide them with humanitarian assistance in the places in and around Cox's Bazar where they've been located. And you've seen the periodic updates we've had. I don't have anything new on that for you. Chair?
Yes, just first to follow up to Edie's question, then I have another question. On the follow-up, you said that there were concerns expressed by the Secretary General for casualties on both sides. Would that concern extend to the terrorist leader of Islamic Jihad, who had reportedly been planning rocket attacks against Israel at the time that he was targeted?
No, I'm expressing concerns about any civilians caught up in the fighting.
Okay, and then my question is, you had the readout of the Secretary General's meeting with President Macron, and I think you mentioned climate change came up. There was nothing mentioned, unless I missed it, concerning immigration, asylum, and particularly President Macron's recent rather hardline position on asylum. Did that subject come up? And if not, given the Secretary General's background in the field of refugees, why not?
Regarding the meeting with President Macron, the details I have to share are what I've said. Obviously, there were a range of topics discussed, but I don't have the ability to specify all of the various topics. Like I said, the main one was climate change. Yes, please.
Thank you, Farhan. Under an October 2018 interim order by the ICJ, the U.S. is obliged to remove any impediment arising from the sanction measure announced on May 8 to the free exportation to Iran of medicine and medical devices. But now we are witnesses 15 Iranian children suffering from EB have died as a Swedish manufacturer has stopped delivering indispensable wounded dressing due to U.S. sanction. What's SG's position in these humanitarian issues and ignoring court order by a permanent member of Security Council?
As a rule, we encourage all member states to comply with the decisions reached by the International Court of Justice. Yes, Oscar.
Thank you, Farhan. Farhan, my question is about the situation in Bolivia. As President Evo Morales, when he resigned, he claimed that he was a victim of military coup. And the opposition leader, he says that that was not because the military didn't intervene with the force, with tanks and soldiers and all this. So does the Secretary General has any comments on this? It is a coup or it's not a coup in this situation in Bolivia?
Well, that's not really an issue for us to define. The situation on the ground is fluid, and as we made clear, including in our statements on Sunday, we're deeply concerned about the situation there. We are reaching out to national and international interlocutors to help calm down the situation. The most important thing right now is to prevent further escalation and to take every measure to create the conditions for peaceful, credible, transparent, and inclusive elections as soon as possible. With that, come on up, Reem.